Heavenly Father, we, the city council members and city officials of Boonville, gather together this evening to discuss city matters. We ask, Lord, that you guide us and direct us in making the correct decisions for our city. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Keisha. Good.
Then stand up.
Let's all stand for Albert. Standing over there.
Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I possess all the qualifications prescribed,
that I possess
all the
all the
qualifications prescribed
prescribed
for the office
for the office
of which I have been appointed
from which I have been appointed
by law,
by law,
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Missouri,
and of the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws
the provision of all laws
of this state
of this state
affecting cities
affecting cities
of the third class,
of the third class,
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of said city,
of said city,
and faithfully
and faithfully
demean myself
demean myself
in the office
in the office
of which I have been appointed
of which I have been appointed
of the city of Boonville, Missouri.
of the city of Boonville, Missouri.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Roll call.
Hurt.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Venable. Turner.
Here.
Stock.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Meadows.
Here.
Robertson.
Here.
Hearing of citizens' comments. Do we have anybody that would like to speak up? Okay, Russell, stand up. Russell's been around the city and worked the city for how many years?
Maybe 15 years.
And then you ran away.
Well, I'll correct that. Maybe 14 years with the city of Boonville, and then I left for about a couple of months with the DNR, and then I came back with Alliance Water Resources.
Right, and he is now the division manager at our water plant. I specifically wanted to make sure that we recognize Russell because we'll see him at most of the meetings.
Well, actually, I'm the local manager for the water plant.
Okay.
Okay. If y'all remember Gary Johnson, who's been with Alliance Water for nearly 40 years, is retiring from Alliance Water effective July 10th. And at that time, Richard Weber will be the new division manager, which will be my supervisor at that time.
Okay,
So
so we
Richard,
congratulate you too.
I don't care, that's fine.
Just take good care of us, please.
so
Thanks.
actually, that's the information you're probably looking for. If you got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
We will. Thanks,
Okay,
Russell.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Approval of the minutes of the June 15, 2020 council meeting. Anybody got any oopses? If nobody else does, on page 9, under mayor, second paragraph, second line in the second paragraph. Mayor Beach thanked her for the time and dedication that she has given. I think we forgot a letter. Do you think maybe an H would have helped there?
Probably so.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else have one? Okay, thank you. We have no consent items tonight. Presentation of accounts and claims, it's on page 12.
Ordinance appropriating money. Be it ordained by the council of the city of Boonville as follows. Section 1. For the purpose of paying salaries and various accounts against the city of Boonville, which have been allowed by the council at the regular meeting thereof on July 6, 2020, the sum of $416,686.56. General fund, $163,984.83. Sanitation, $46,226.03. CIP tax, $8,583.45. Waterworks, $83,515.98. Capital projects, $0.00. Wastewater, $56,981.23. Tourism, $7,134.11. Gaming, $25,233.34. Parks and Water, $728.70. Kemper Sales Tax, $24,298.89. Section 2. The accountant is hereby authorized and instructed to draw checks on the respective city bank accounts in favor of the persons whose salaries and accounts have been allowed as above, amounting to $416,686.56, being the total amount of money above appropriated. Section 3. This ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its passage. First reading on July 6, 2020. Read for the second time this July 6, 2020, since a copy was made available prior to the meeting.
Second reading, title only.
Ordinance appropriating money.
Mayor, make a motion this be approved.
Thank you, Morris.
I'll second.
Is there a second? Thank you, Curtis. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Hurt.
Here.
Carter.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Stock.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Meadows.
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Okay, unfinished business. Second reading of bill number 2020-014, approving local agency funding contracts.
An ordinance of the City of Boonville, Missouri, approving local agency funding contracts for services, providing an effective date therefore, and repealing all ordinances in conflict with this ordinance.
Mayor, I make a motion this be approved.
Thank you, Morris. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Curtis. Any questions or comments? Roll call.
Hurt.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Turner.
I was a member of this committee, so I'm going to abstain.
Stock.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Meadows.
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
Passes. Item 8, new business. Capital projects discussion. This starts on page 13. Kate is leading the way.
Okay, so, before we kind of worked on the budget amendments, I thought it was worthy to go through the capital projects that we had planned for, this year as well as into the future. And I looked back and we did one in 2017 and then we did one in 2018, so here we are in 2020. And, lest you think we keep talking about the same things, we did cross a few things off the list. So that was nice. We crossed the fire truck and a few other things. So we are making progress. Some things just keep rolling over, but we're getting there. So it seemed like people appreciated the silos and the ideas of boxes and where they belong. So we're kind of just sticking with that theme from the memo we did way back in 2017. And so to start out with just soccer complex, it's the shortest term, hopefully, and just really some wrap-up things. But I also included the loan payments that are included in there, just so you can see where we are. There's a few drainage issues that need to be dealt with there still, and a little bit of cleanup. The sidewalk from the new building to the Field 5 sidewalks needs to be done, but generally speaking, it's done. And we have asked the parks crew to do the work that's remaining. It was on their schedule for this summer, but unfortunately, since we don't have work release, the inmates, the entire parks crew is mowing lawns. So that's been a big change of pace for them. Typically, we have about 3 people who are out doing construction projects and 1 person who's doing the mowing with 3 inmates. This year it's taking all of them just to mow. So I don't know the time frame now for this. Nothing is critical or crucial to getting done. We obviously worked just fine last year, and not to mention soccer parks aren't a very popular place to be right now, and so it's okay. So we will get to that, and we do have some money set aside to do those things, so, anyway, so that's just kind of the first little wrap-up project I wanna talk about, yeah.
Are these sources, are these adjusted numbers?
These are what we budgeted. So I just took them straight, and I tried to note the ones with the asterisks that I thought were actually, the ones that might be most at risk. The sales tax numbers that we got in for the Kemper Sales Tax, the CIP tax, the general tax, actually for, the number we got in for June for May sales, really made up for all of our losses. So I don't know what happened, but people went on a shopping spree. So we're back on par with where we were last year. And now I'm not confident enough to say that's what's gonna happen or that we're gonna gain for the next 8 months, but at least today, we're back to a level footing as opposed to a 10% loss. Obviously, gaming, I just estimate our loss at somewhere between $600,000 and $650,000. That's for the months that it was closed. And then on this one, the field rentals, obviously, again, we're not renting the fields out right now. So we're losing that revenue. But on the flip side, the operations are gonna be less because we're not having use. They're not gonna be, they still have to mow the lawn, but there's less work to be done. So the next one is what I would say the most certain funding we have, and that's the Kemper Sales Tax. And that's because that's all we're gonna use that money for. That's what we told the voters we were gonna do with that project.
This is silo 2.
Yeah, silo 2. So, we had budgeted $750,000, and you'll see my uses, the $250,000 for the parking lot construction, which is currently underway. If you looked at the, accounts and claims that we paid out $26,000. So we're back on working at the Kemper parking lot. I budgeted $200,000 at the Library Learning Center for the building improvements, which is the AC units, the tuck pointing, the stairs, and the back ramp and the buttons, but that's just a guess, so, but I think that should cover it, hopefully. Then at the next meeting, we'll be talking about the Dectron unit. There's a bid coming out. The YMCA Dectron unit, which is their humidity machine that keeps the humidity right at the pool, went out, and you could either fix the fan for $30,000 or you could buy a new unit, and I think our low bid was closer to about $80,000. But the whole unit was like 20 years old anyway, so it made more sense to go ahead and just buy the whole new unit, because the fan, you couldn't put a new fan if we had to buy a new unit, so you would have been out the $30,000. So we opted to go ahead and just go for the sure deal and get a whole new thing. That was not a planned expense for this year, but there will be money to cover it again, because we're gonna roll over a lot of the money from the sales tax this year anyways. And then also, if you remember, when we talked about the YMCA renovations, not the expansion, but just the renovations, we budgeted $1 million for Johnson Fieldhouse. So depending on how we end up budget-wise, when we get to the YMCA renovations, if we need to pull the Dectron unit from, because it wasn't on the list, if we need to pull something else from the list, we will do that. But that's probably 3-4 years out that we were doing that. So anyways, so we want to get their pool back operational. They've been able to keep the pool open this summer by keeping the windows open, and so far it's worked. So, but that's not a long-term solution. So, and then some professional services in there. So that's kind of where we are. And Scott has been working on the redesign of the what I keep calling the main door steps. And the small building committee took a look at the new steps and as a conceptual design, and that was met with some positive feedback. So he is working on the final design, and then we're hoping to go ahead and get that ready out for bid. So it's still our goal to bid this project out, which will be the ramp in the back and the new steps this fall, I think, right? Yep. So also just to recap, that the streets crew is doing the back parking lot, and they're doing the infrastructure with the water and sewer lines as well. So they've been doing a great job, and they're continuing to move forward. So another potential project for this year, if we wanted to bite it off, is the environmental work that needs to be done at D Barracks and Academic Hall. For those who have been on the council, you know that we had utilized a funding source called the ERA, which actually paid 100% of the abatement cost of asbestos removal. Unfortunately, that program has been closed out for the state of Missouri. I've still been in contact with the person who managed that, and they were applying for another grant, but it was significantly more competitive, so nationwide. And so she's not sure that Missouri would get the funding. But if they did, she would certainly keep us in consideration, so she's supposed to get back with us. So we may have to pay for all of the remediation that we do at D Barracks, and if there's anything at Academic Hall. We do have a phase 1 that was done some time ago, based on our experience with both K Barracks and the administration building. The phase 1 hasn't been that reliable, so that's why we want to go back in and do another one. And then also, the state can do these phase 1s for us for free, so we might proceed down that route and have them do the phase 1, and we'll partner into the voluntary cleanup program. Those things are all possible. It's just a matter of whether or not myself or Paul or Jeff can get out of some of these other projects that are in current and move forward with that. But it is on our radar screen that we need to work on that. And we can't move forward with Academic Hall until we take care of the asbestos. So I mean, it doesn't seem to take very long when we finally get to that work, but I think we should probably plan on a year, 6 to 9 months to do that from the moment we say, okay, we're ready to getting it cleaned up. So we just need to be mindful of that step. The next thing is silo number 3, which is street repairs. And I believe, as a parting gift, ML gave us a memo on it. And it's on page 17. So he kind of outlaid that we really pared back our street maintenance and repair projects for this year. When they started planning these issues, that was right when we shut down. It was right when the casino shut down. And so we just said, we'll pare it way back because we don't know what's going to happen and if we'll have the money to do that. So this year, we're going to do a much smaller project, and it's what you see down below. It's the intersection of Maple and Cherry Streets, the intersection of Wayland Road and 11th Street, intersection of Walnut and 4th Street, Lakeside Drive at Ashley Road, and then Crone Street at Tisdale. And then there's a sanitary sewer main repair that we need to do at the Isle Capri parking lot, and then Pierre Lane. And not all of Pierre Lane, but just a couple portions where we worked. So you'll see in Silo 3, the budget on that is $65,000. That's only for mill and overlay. So there will be no chip and seal this year. There will be no slurry seal. There won't be anything else this year. So just these small projects. So by paring it down, my recommendation is that we essentially try to save that gaming money and pay for that entirely out of the CIP budget. So that's, if we're looking to cut $650,000, the street repair and gaming is a nice big chunk. So that's not to say we won't use some of it, but it's hard to make up $650,000 in $50,000 increments. So I was trying to find some bigger ones. And then there's also some budget for street resurfacing in 0104, our general admin fund. So I also, if you looked at your budget books, the CIP tax has more money than $75,000, but I'm using it in another section in the stormwater repairs, which we'll have to come back and fix the street anyway. So so that's my recommendation for moving forward on streets, and these are just routine and annual. So next year, assuming that we have a regular year, or a more close to regular year. Obviously, we're gonna be a little behind this year, but we're just gonna have to take some bigger bites at the apple over the next couple years with chip and seal and slurry seal and some of those other things we try to catch back up. So I also just included some of the bigger projects that have long been on our list. So you see where we're trying to do some significant work, and that's 3rd Street from Spring to Pine, 6th Street, Bingham to Poplar, 4th Street, Sycamore to South, and then I call it the Kenmore Ring, the Kemper, Ring Road, but that's kind of that road that wraps from 2nd Street all the way out behind the Y and back out. And the 4th Street, 6th Street, and 3rd Street also include water lines and sanitary sewer lines and other things. So it's really a full rebuild and a full upgrade of a 100-year-old system. So it's kind of where we are. Number 4 is the stormwater repairs. So we also provided with you the information here, and I'm actually going to turn this over to Scott to talk about because they have been putting in a lot of time, and his memo is going to start on page 19. So turn it over to you. Talk about all the work we've been asking you to do.
Sanitary sewer rehab. Went out there, we cameraed large area downtown near the casino, up the Roops Branch tributary and drainage basin area. As you can see, we noticed what's outlined on the map, areas of significant I&I infiltration. It was witnessed during stormwater events. Water actually flowing heavily in those areas. This is all color coded. We also put priority lists together. What's in red is red dots are manholes that need to be replaced. Yellow dots, manholes that need to be lined. The green dots are basically those manholes that are just fine. And then there are white dots or manholes we can't find out there whatsoever. We know they're there, but they're buried under asphalt, many layers, or under earth or whatever. We can see them with the camera as we go by, but we can't find them on the surface. As far as the mainline rehabilitation, the pipe rehabilitation, the red lines are basically significant issues. They totally need to be replaced. You can't line them. They're old, they're deteriorating, and they've got major problems structurally. We got some lines that are just point repairs, and then they can be lined, and those are the orange. The yellow ones have minor structural issues that can be lined, that need to be lined. We got some green lines that are joint failures and root intrusions that should be lined, and then you got the rest of it, which is no significant issues in the blue, and the blacks weren't surveyed. Past that, we put a list of manholes, priority lists that need to be lined, and there are a significant number of manholes, 50 manholes here that need to be lined. And then we got 23 manholes that need to be replaced, and the priority list on that. And then we got the priority list on the line rehabilitation. Looks like there's 62 lines that need to be rehabbed. So there's a significant amount of work there. many, many, many years in just that small portion of town.
Okay, you wanna do the other repairs too? So in it, oh, go ahead.
This is on the west side of Main, right?
Yeah.
As far as-
So in addition to that work, we also had Scott work on 3 specific stormwater issues, that either we needed to repair or that we wanted to see about repairing. So one of them was the Rankin Mill, which you heard from one of the property owners. One of them is 11th and Crone, and then the last one is a problem at Kemper and 3rd Street. So I'll let you
Alright.
take those away too.
Rankin Mill,
And you have all those also in your plans.
yeah. That little project there, we're just gonna extend the pavement out 12 feet so that we can get the stormwater off the pavement without it deteriorating the gravel, by not putting in curbs. So it'll just roll off the pavement into a paved ditch and down the paved ditch into a pipe that crosses under the driveway. And I believe the city's going to be doing that work.
Yeah.
So I just gave Jeff the set of plans for that, and they are complete for him to get started on. Over on 11th Street in Crone, you got a steep bank off the street, and basically the existing rolled curb that's out there is settled and tilted back due to deterioration of the bank. As such, the joints are no longer there. Whenever a significant rainfall occurs, you got basically 3 inches of curb height because it's all tilted back and off the street, and therefore water's just rolling over the top, down that hillside, deteriorating it even further, and into the garage of the house of Wells. What we're planning to do is put in a 6-inch vertical curb in there. We're gonna key that curb down so it doesn't tilt. So we're gonna key it into the surface, put rock behind it. But in doing so, we could create a problem down on Crone Street because the water will go around the corner and basically down the driveway of the same house and flood the basement. So we're just diverting it. So we're gonna put in a 4x4 curb inlet to pick it up before it makes the curve, and pipe that right into a storm sewer system that goes down Crone already.
And we'll bid that project out. I will tell you that we've asked Scott whether city crews do it or we bid it out, that we're gonna have them doing construction management on all those projects, because we wanna make sure we do it right, and if the people are doing the observation see anything that we're not doing correctly, we wanna get it right. We only wanna go in once and fix it, whether we're doing it or the contractors. So, they will be on site to make sure we're meeting all of the requirements that they set forth. Before we go into Kemper and 3rd Street, so my recommendation is that we tackle those 2 small projects this year. And if you flip back, I apologize, to page 15, that's why I split that CIP tax, so there's about $100,000 in there, so that should cover both of those projects, and there'd be a little bit left over. As you can see, we have a lot of stormwater issues, and this is probably just the tip of the iceberg. So, it's my recommendation we start with those 2 this year, and then also tackle a portion of this repair or lining or some combination that Jeff and I will work on with Scott this year as well. The next one, the Kemper 3rd Street, I'm not recommending that we try to deal with this. I really wanted to include this because this is not the only place where we have some real stormwater control issues, but the cost is very significant, and it's not an easy project. So with that nice introduction, I'll let you keep going.
I apologize. My name is Scott Vogler. I haven't met a few of you. I'm with MECO Engineering. I've worked with the city for I don't know, almost 18 years, I believe, or something like that, on engineering. What ended up happening in the alleyway that behind 3rd Street to the east, there is the alleyway comes down into a sump from both sides, okay? ML and I, about a couple years or maybe 3 years ago, had a complaint in that alley. We walked down through that alley and we found a graded inlet in that sump. And we looked where that graded inlet went, and unfortunately that graded inlet went right into the sanitary sewer system. So it was a direct connect of stormwater to your sanitary sewer. So the city went in there and disconnected it. Well, of course, when you disconnected it, it just created an additional problem because now the stormwater is going in between houses down to 3rd Street. And property owner is complaining about it, obviously. So what we're looking at here is to curb and gutter the alley for a significant portion of it in order to capture the water, bring it down to a curb inlet, pick it up in a sump, and pipe it around the houses. Put 2 additional curb inlets in on 3rd Street to pick up stormwater on 3rd Street since we're going through it. Take it all the way down to the lake behind Kemper, or the previous lake, the drained lake behind Kemper. And that is a significant run of stormwater piping, junction boxes, back and forth, in and out, trying to miss everything, trying to get it down there. That is the natural drainage course for this thing.
So Scott provided an estimate, so this whole project is, the estimate's $125,000. That's a big project. And we also wanted to bring this one up because sometimes people complain and they say, oh, if you just curb and gutter our block. Well, we're not gonna curb and gutter your block and then flood the next person down. So oftentimes on these stormwater issues, it's not as easy as just dealing with the person who has the runoff, as this demonstrates. It's an entire sort of renovation, I guess you would say,
Yeah.
or creation probably of the stormwater system as it stands today, as it should have been. So, like I said, I don't know that this is something we want to try to tackle this year. It's a significant project at a significant cost. However, at some point in time, we're going to need to do this one, and then there's going to be some other ones. The other challenge on this is you'll see you're going through people's backyards, and this is not a small project. This is significant digging, so we'll have to get the easements, and so it's
Right. This is 18.
it's not just one thing, it's a whole bunch of
Yeah,
things.
this is 18-inch and 24-inch stormwater piping in order to make this work. So it's not small pipe by no means.
So, does anybody have any questions for Scott? He knows all the technicals, he can answer all the questions. All right. So again, my recommendation is we just wait on 3rd Street and kind of see what our budget looks like, how it plays out, and whether or not we want to try to tackle something like that this year, if we want to push it into next year. But, you know, for several years, we've really struggled to get a list of manholes and manhole lining and locations. At one time, we did that internally, and the person who did that retired, and so we've really struggled to kind of have a a good sense for where we need to go with our I&I work, our inflow and infiltration work. So that's when ML and I talked, and we just asked Miko, we said, just tell us what we need to do so we know where to go. So I'm very appreciative of them doing this whole work. And at some point in time, we'll tackle another drainage basin once we get all of this work done. It'll be a while. So, so moving to the next silo is number 4 is the water projects. There's only 2 water projects that I put down here, and that's at the bottom of page 15. The first is the Hale Ridge water line. We are getting closer to being ready to maybe do final plans on that. I think I've already said that we made contact with almost all of the landowners now, and we've had a more favorable response for them. So I feel like we're getting closer to those planning. Scott told me that it'll take about 4 months once we're ready to start for him to do final design, get the permit, and get us ready. And then once we have the permit in hand, we only have 2 years to do the project. So I won't have him apply for the permit until we have all the easements in hand and we're ready to actually start. And he shot me an estimate, and the estimate on the Hale Ridge water line, this is having, I would say 95% of it really done by outside contractors, was $1.4 million. So for people who weren't here when we did this water line will run, there's a water tower at the hospital, and it runs down to I-70 and basically just runs parallel I-70, and then pops out at the Lens property, kind of where that gas station area was, and then it'll go under 87 and then come back up. And we need to get water there because we annexed it in, but also we need to get water there because the water at the lake, at the golf course, is not of a suitable quality to irrigate with. So until we can get better water, they're not going to be able to irrigate. And then additionally, when we started this was before the Public Water Supply District had started their project, but it was very limited commercial development there because of the Public Water Supply District. They couldn't necessarily supply the flow or the fire flow that they were, that would be necessary for, say, a hotel or a restaurant or those sort of things. So the other one is the 4th Street water line. We talked about that, Earl talked about that. It's between Sycamore and Pine. We've repaired that line twice, and if you remember, the line is 20 feet deep, maybe. And so we keep having to dig out that street. So we wanted to just redo the water line, but bring it up closer so we're not having to dig through the street. And that's something that we can do with our city crews. There are also some proposed water line improvements at 6th Street and 3rd Street, but we would include those in any of our future street rebuilds, along with the I&I and the stormwater and all those sort of things. So I included some sources of funding for that. There's also some reserves so I don't want you to think that that's all there's there. That's just all we budgeted this year, but water is sitting on some reserves that they're available to do some of like the bigger Hale Ridge project. I also wanted to say up there in Silo 4, when we talk about the stormwater repairs, after 2023, which is when we'll pay off one of the soccer loans, there'll be a significantly more amount of, available cash. So we could very easily throw $250,000 or $300,000 every year towards stormwater, which will enable us to do some really big bites at the stormwater issue. And today, 2023 doesn't sound as far away as it used to. So I do want to say there's blue sky for the stormwater work. So despite the length and the cost of that, there is a dedicated source of funding. So that's a positive. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and if you guys want to add items to it, that's fine. This is the blue sky list, and it gets long and longer, and we just keep adding things to it, and that's okay. There's no committed funding to any of these projects. There's no time frame. We've used gaming, tourism, CIP, Parks and Stormwater, Transportation Development District, admin funds, really whatever is appropriate or relevant to the project. So on the parks projects, this is some things that we had wanted to do this year, or that have been on the list, and the one that I do want to talk about is number 1, the erosion of the hillside at Rolling Hills. So we've fixed that twice already, and the last time Grice came in and they tried to put something in it, put some drainage underneath it, and we're right back to eroding. So I don't know what the fix is now, or if we just have to keep doing that fix. I think I was gonna have Miko take a look and see if they had any recommendation, if we should try to put a retaining wall in there to try to hold the bottom of the hill a little bit better, but it's a big hillside, so.
Is that the hill by the, just off the side of the ballpark?
Yeah. So that one is the only one of these blue sky items that I will say is a little bit time sensitive. So, and that's just started now, so we're gonna have to figure something out to do. But again, planting trees, Cliff Drive, which is the road that runs right between the bridge and Harley Park. It's a platted road, but we have it closed to traffic except for people who own property there. We've wanted to connect those two with a bike trail and just to beautify that at some point in time. Redo the street swellings on Main Street, put it like a spray or a sprinkler grounds at Kemper, any new baseball or softball fields, trying to put the water back in Kemper Lake so it's in service, and then any Hale Ridge improvements, the parking lot, etc. The tourism list is just any 2nd Street improvements, which have been on our list to do to try to turn 2nd Street into the festival event center, maybe RV parking. Katy Bridge, and then Katy would like to redo the basement of the visitor center so she could utilize that for activities and events as well. We've also keep coming back to trying to figure out if we could turn that into a archive space for stuff. We have a lot of stuff. The airport, so the airport terminal at some point in time needs to be rebuilt. That's been on the list for a long time. The airport has very slow internet, which isn't necessarily a problem except for today. All of the fuel pumps use credit cards and they use internet to buy fuel. So at some point in time, we're gonna need to deal with improving the internet so we can upgrade the fuel pumps. And the fuel pumps at the airport, although they work just fine, they are no longer supported. So if you remember the discussion that we had about the water, the handheld meters, and we bought something and then those were no longer supported. We're kind of in the same place. So we're able to keep fixing it if it's had an issue, but it's been fine, but it's on the list. At some point in time, those fuel pumps will need to be redone. Just some general building maintenance, repurpose the church at 4th and Spring Street that we purchased some years ago. There's some routine maintenance that needs to be done here at the council chambers. City Hall needs some work done down in the basement to deal with water issues that we have. Public Works hasn't had any sort of upgrade in 20 years or so, or 15 years, so we kind of need to maybe look at that. Health Department needs a new building. They currently operate out of the old building on Morgan Street, and there's power there, but there's no bathroom, so they have a porta potty. There's no heating or cooling. It's not a very good place, but it works for now, and it has a nice big garage for them to work on their equipment. But at some point in time, they're gonna need a new building so they can have a bathroom, have an office, have a little kitchen, those sort of things. And we worked last year trying to come off of the Public Works garage, and it ultimately there wasn't quite enough space without cutting off too much of the driveway. So, there's a little bit of land that we own kind of between the Public Works lot and then what was the state assistant superintendent house lot. Between those two, there's a little piece that we can put a shed or a metal building that would fit quite nicely. That was about $250,000. It was something I had hoped to put on the list for this year, but again, I don't know that it's gonna make the cut. Public Works, I will tell you what these things are, and if you have any questions, you can ask, but I'm not guaranteeing I'll know all the answers. So there are some water plant upgrades, could be firm capacity, electrical work, demolition, rebuild of a small building that's there. Anything with regulatory compliance, disinfection byproduct, wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plant, permit, and then the integrated management plan. So anything that we do primarily is driven by some regulatory compliance that we're trying to keep up with or meet. Jeff and I had a really good meeting with Geosyntec, who has been helping us through the permits and setting local limits and those sort of things. So there's a chance that we might be able to combine the integrated management plan into one, and so we'll agree to all the improvements, which will help it will help us control the time frame a little bit, and that was the benefit of the integrated management plan all the years that we did that. So it keeps us from sort of running against DNR regulations every year, because we've kind of agreed to what we need to do, and then it lets us sort of say, here's how we can fund it, and here's the time frame that enables us to do it. The next thing is, the last section is technology. Again, some of these things have been on our list for some time, like the security cameras, something that Teresa and I just, we didn't get to, and we still haven't done them. I would like to look at GIS mapping and try to get all of our sewer and water lines mapped in the city. So currently, when we have an economic development project or we have anything, we call James Earl, we call Jeff, we call Miko, we go, where's this stuff? And then everyone draws nicely where they think it is, and most of the time they're pretty accurate, but sometimes there's some surprises. And as we lose some of our staff over the next 10 years that have this institutional knowledge, it's going to be important that we just get it to a point where we can pull it up on a map and it's more accessible for anyone. So whether it's economic development or we're talking to somebody that they need to go fix a manhole or something so they can see exactly where it is. And then kind of trying to do some additional encode. Encode is sort of the backbone to the city's cash system, I guess you would say. It does all of our timesheets, it does our AP, it pays the bills, writes the checks, all that kind of stuff. We would like to do a couple more programs. One of them is business license, and then the other one is cash collection. Right now, we have to do a lot of manual journal entering to tell money where to go because it just comes in. Cash collections would enable all those things to happen sort of automatically and without as much work for Kim. So it would be nice. And then the addition of city buildings to the live fiber ring. So, we've done a lot of upgrades to our internet, and that would just be to carry those things on. So, does anyone have anything else they want to put on any list is the first question, or you guys can think about it and certainly email me and let me know. But these are kind of all the things that have been on our radar screen and will continue to be on our radar screen, and hopefully we'll be able to work through some of them. And before I turn it over for questions, my intention is to take this list and really help more clearly define that. So when we work on what we're doing with the budget, we're going to say, yes, for sure, this is on the list. This is on the no list, and this is on the maybe list, so that we're clear about what we're going to do this year. And again, I guess I should say it's probably all with a huge asterisk because there's still a lot of year left.
Funding.
Yeah, based on funding. Any questions?
If I understood you're saying every year you look at these items, these blue sky items, and we have some kind of rating system or
Yep.
to see which one will actually go into the budget?
Yeah, and a lot of, like I said, sometimes if we can find a way for example, the Transportation Development District, which is the Isle of Capri, they're a separate subdivision, but they have they have an additional sales tax down at the Isle, and they have funds, so they've been able to help us do a lot of things. So all of the lighting, the new lighting we did at Spring and Morgan Street, they helped pay for that. So sometimes if we can marry the two, then we can pluck something off and say, oh, we'll use some tourism funds and we'll use some TDD funds, and then the city kicks in labor and we can get those things off the list. But yeah, we pretty much take a look at these, and the department heads take a look at them as well. And like I said, some of these have been on the list for probably 20 years. I guess you could ask Henry how long the fire truck was on the list before it finally got off the blue sky list. One day it happened, so in due time, it seems like.
Who's got questions? For Curtis, Teresa, Albert, this is typically done with the annual budget exercise. Because of the loss of income from the coronavirus, which just on the side of the boat looks like it's going to be somewhere north of 600,000. We're not really actually doing a whole brand new budget, but we're recategorizing, resetting priorities so that we can make sure that we don't, break the bank, so to speak. So that's why we're doing this now. Questions from anybody? All right. I'm sure they'll come up. Morris, you got anything?
No, later on.
See?
Yeah, and if you guys have any questions after you go home, or if you want to put something on the list, like I said, the blue sky list is infinitely open and expanding. So, and if there's other priority needs too, I shouldn't say that's the only one that gets to be added to, but please email me, call me, or if it's a street or water or sewer issue, you can talk to Jeff about it as well. But and likewise, parks, happy to talk to Paul. But
Good. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everybody. Reports of standing committees. Anything to tell us about Housing Authority, Morris?
They're hoping with everything. Everything's moving forward, and we're lucky to have somebody like Bob down there.
I think you're correct. Item B, those are the listing of the boards that did not meet due to the coronavirus. Reports of city officials. City administrator, you got anything to add?
good.
No? Mayor, on page 42, we have one committee member to approve. That's for the local agency fund. Brent Bosa, is there a motion? Thanks, Michael. Is there a second? Everybody's second. We're going to take a Teresa for the second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Hurt,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes. Just as an added note to talk about the income on page 45. Due to the casino closures during the month of May, we are unable to provide you with a monthly report that allows you to compile and analyze the financial data that is remitted by the licensed gaming operators. I don't know how many of you read that, but it seemed to me to be superfluous, which means unnecessary. But there it is, and it's official. City clerk.
Did you want to add the information on page 40 for the council appointments?
Yeah, good idea. I'm sure everybody read it. Page 40. Those are the committee assignments for the council people. And it is our goal to see if we can't begin to get a little bit more activity out of the committees.
What's the effective date? That would be
Say it again, sir?
effective date of this. Is
That's
that now?
That's now. Mhm. Yep. Item 11, miscellaneous. Who has a miscellaneous? Okay. Item 12, I have a motion to enter the closed session for personnel.
I'll make a motion to go in closed session, RSMO 610.021, personnel.
Thank you, Morris, second.
I'll second.
Curtis, seconds. Questions? Roll call.
Hurt,
Here. Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Young,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Robertson.
Yes.
All right, we will enter closed session. See you guys.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks for being here. Okay. See you, Scott. See you, Jeff.